Naming the herd. Yes, this is what you were working on during the week?
Yes.
All right. Any comments on the assignment? Was it hard? Was it fun? Was it easy? Was it?
I found your example helpful.
Pretty easy, the example again. I missed it.
I should, yeah, let me see if I have.
Or is it in this paper?
Yep. You got any examples out?
And you know, this book really defines it.
The Book of Forgiving, if you haven't ordered yours, you really should. It's just really powerful. And so one of the things I say about scripture all the time is it's crazy, right? I've studied this all my adult life, and still, when I go to a book that I haven't been reading for a while, you go, I had no idea that was in there. I didn't know. And it makes me happy. Our morning scripture readings, Marilyn often says the same thing. Only she says, well, I knew it was in there. I just didn't understand it before. Oh, my, I didn't know it was even there. But the Book of Forgiving always makes me cry. And I always get another layer of understanding of what he is trying to communicate. And the stories are really powerful too.
The story, yes.
All right, is there anybody here who would be willing to read their work to the class? You can delete names if you want. Bill, okay, all right, read it. So the assignment, remember, was to think about what the actual damage in the situation was and to make it the right size, right? So that you're not trying to forgive a mountain's worth of emotions, but just what happened. Bill.
Okay, so this is part two.
Mhm.
Hurt. Maybe I should fill in what.
Sure, give us a sketch.
Yeah. So, I was texting with my brother and sister, and, because Steve said to do a minor one, this is kind of minor. And my brother and I are always kind of, I don't know, taking little pot shots at each other, nothing major, but. So I was gonna sign off and I said, nighty night, Ian. And he said, good night, John boy. And I lost it. That just hit me the right way or the wrong way.
Wrong day,
Wrong something.
wrong thing else.
So anyway, so naming the hurt. Number one, I was hurt by his disrespect. 2, I wasn't surprised that he wanted revenge for my comment to him. 3, I was surprised at how much it affected me and made me angry. 4, my wife understood my anger, but asked how long I was going to let this tit for tat thing go on. Especially since I seem to be getting the worst of it. Number 5, my wife and sponsors' long-term view of me didn't change. 6, the pain my brother caused me made me realize that I still have feelings of inadequacy and shame that go back to my childhood. This made me understand that I need to work on those issues, specifically through mending the soul. 7, his insult made me realize that I need to change my behavior if I don't want to get hurt in the same way. And number 8, the long-term impact is that I have changed my behavior toward him and others. I now no longer quote unquote poke the bear, especially in regards to him. I approach him on the straight and narrow path and don't try to antagonize it. This has led me to some peace of mind in my relations with him.
That's really great work. And should be common, right? In naming the hurt thing, it's almost always the case for me. But what I learned is, oh geez, right? This thing was such a huge deal to me, in part because I had all kinds of unfinished business that came before it, and it triggered me, right? either the tone or the actual event or whatever. And so I bring a whole emotional load sometimes to situations that don't belong to that situation. They belong to a lifetime of pretending like I can just walk away from them instead of dealing with them. And I certainly kind of heard that as a theme of yours. Also, the underlying truths. One of the things, if you start looking back at a pattern of hurt, right? When X did this, it was just like when this happened with that person and before, right? If you work at it long enough and hard enough, sometimes you'll come to realize, oh my goodness, I have been hurting, or I've been angry, or I've been reactive to those kind of things because I was operating on a life view or an assumption that isn't actually true. For example, the simplest example is two little kids fight, and the one who loses goes to the parent and says what?
So-and-so hurt.
It isn't fair, right? It isn't fair. He's bigger than me, or whatever. And so their constant wailing is, it's not fair, it's not fair, it's not fair. Here's the deal. If they wander through the rest of their life believing that somehow there's a magic place where things are fair, what are they going to be? Bitterly disappointed. So what do parents say? Not always fair. Get over it. Stop it. Don't whine. Right? All those things. But right, that's a very simple kind of example. But parents are trying to tell them, look, you cannot, right? You cannot grow up going into life assuming that the whole world's going to be fair, because it's not going to be. You're way better to have an assumption that says when it's fair, you should really be happy. When it's not fair, you should really be wise. But you got to get over being offended when the world's not fair, because you're just going to be offended every doggone day of your life, right? So as adults, sometimes we have way more difficult truths. For example, it could be that in the dissolution of a marriage, and this is on my mind a lot because Miley, our daughter, is getting divorced, that a part of the great offense that drives the person out of the marriage who decides to vacate the marriage is that the marriage didn't live up to some idealized understanding and belief they had about what marriage would be. Almost always when that's the case, if you are able to talk with a person, they will unwittingly tell you that what they thought the marriage would be is the other person loving them, admiring them, doting on them, and thinking they were wonderful all the time. And they were shocked to discover the other person actually began to point out a fault here and there, right? Sometimes vociferously. The underlying truths that we hang ourselves out with, right? When you can reveal those about yourself, right? Less fun than revealing about other people. When you can reveal them about yourself, man, a lot of healing can take place really fast. That is sometimes the effect of naming the hurt. You figure out what triggered you, right? If you're triggered, it means that it's past stuff going on. And if you look, it's not always, right? Sometimes what happened is just wrong. There's no two ways about it. But sometimes, right, it's a little more nuanced, and you can clean up a whole lot of damage in a big hurry if you discover, right, I've been offended my whole life, or I've been hurt by this my whole life because I was believing something that isn't true. So I got a communication about the sermon on Sunday, and it was really powerful to me. The person said, when you said that refusing to forgive and stoking anger was making that person my God, I realized I've done that all my life. I've always allowed other people to be the center of my attention and my focus, believing if they would just change, I would be okay. That's this, right? That's for whatever reason, they came to an underlying truth, a different way, a different angle to understand the power of forgiveness. Does that all make sense? Okay. We illustrated in communion tonight, right? What Peter did, which was horrible, didn't change what Jesus was going to do one way or the other. And we'd like to be in a position where if our brothers poke at us, me and Bill, it doesn't really have any effect. That they lose the power to trigger us, even if they're the ones who started it and tried to. Honestly, right? That is tremendous power, and that puts God where God belongs, instead of spending your whole life just spinning out of control about what's wrong with other people. And there's a lot wrong with other people. I know them too. Anybody else want to share their naming the hurt list?
Mine's too small.
I give it to us. Small is good.
Well, and it's just a few words, but somebody, this lady was upset because I was gonna go after my doctorate. And she had worked out with the director of nurses that the two of them would do it, and wanted to know why I was doing that. Why I was gonna try and get my doctorate.
Is that a way of saying you're stupid?
I think she was very jealous.
Okay.
But I was hurt. I never knew that she ever felt that way. And so my thing, I was just hurt that she would think that I was trying to undermine her friendship with somebody that was also my friend, or that I was trying to take her place or anything like that. Because this is something I'd considered for a long time. So it just, once I figured out that her problem was jealousy,
Same,
That-
right, same thing, only it just takes a different path, right?
yeah,
You were able to humanize her, because you've been jealous too, me too, right? And once you can come to that and you're able to remember, in jealousy, human beings can act in these ways, it's lost its personal affront, right?
right.
Now you don't have to honor it effectively by saying, well, I feel like I should fight against it, I need to convince her otherwise. No, you don't, because,
I just went ahead and
Jealous.
did my thing.
and it's hard to tell what she's jealous of.
Yeah.
Right? My goodness, people wind themselves up in all kinds of ways about whatever. You're a person who smiles a lot and makes a concerted effort to be a positive influence. There are a lot of people who don't like that, right?
Oh, yeah.
Right. And one of the reactions would be jealousy, right? So again, it's great work, right? And it illustrates actually quite well, Diane, the power that's involved in being able to forgive somebody is really multi-manifest, right? So to be able to come to the place where your process leads you to say, well, she's just jealous, just really removes the offense, removes the personal part of it, and allows you to go forward. You don't have to work and labor to try to prove her wrong or to run around and repair your reputation. You can just get on with it. So in this church, my only experience in the early years was, oh my God, I spent almost all my time trying to figure out why people were saying trash about me, right? And it was a cottage industry. They ran around writing letters and saying stuff. And I hadn't even been, I can be very offensive. I'm quite good at it. I'm gifted. I hadn't had enough time to be, right? You just go, what is going on with these people? It's the most hateful bunch of people I've ever been around. And the reason we do these things now is because in my process, I realized you can't keep that up, right? They keep adding to the list of folks that are happy to denigrate me. At some point, I gotta be free because they're monsters, right? I gotta figure out how to just step away from it, let them say what they're gonna say and get on with my business. Again, ultimately, the right or wrong of whatever is said or the opinions ceases to matter as much as whether you're free or whether you're enslaved. And if somebody's harmed you, enslaves you, you gotta get free. And the good news is God has given you really the opportunity, right? That's what forgiveness is. Forgiveness is a synonym effectively for freedom.
It's probably off the track.
Well,
But
we
I thought
first time
about
for us, so that's
something
all right.
years ago when I was working down south.
Huh?
There was probably 300 to 400 people at that terminal. And somebody said something to me one time, and my answer to them was, if I get along with this person, and I get along with this person, but they don't get along with each other, that's their problem,
That's right.
not mine.
That's right. Yeah, no, that's kind of my point. Let me introduce you to a term that's in vogue right now in counseling. Flying monkeys. Do you know what a flying monkey is? It's someone who is recruited to be angry with a person who is angry, which is what you're talking about, right? So in a triangle where the two people are mad at each other, but you get along with both of them, if they're both trying to recruit you to say, you have to agree with me, that's a terrible man, they're trying to make you into a flying monkey, right? So they whistle and you'll come and you'll be offended too. And that's one of the crassest and most base of human actions and emotions. Beware when somebody calls you, right? If you answer the phone or you meet somebody and you're feeling good, and by the time they're done talking to you about how horrible somebody else is, you're mad at somebody who never did a doggone thing to you, you have just become flying monkey. You need a little, as I recall, gray and blue. And you need to know that eventually, in time, the Wicked Witch is gonna melt. But it's true, right? People put together war parties, and the universal rule is, the greater the need to recruit other people to be mad with you, the less righteous your cause.
I feel like that's true for wars, your allies.
Yes, it is. It's a universal thing, right? It's unpleasant to think, I'm a flying monkey? Yes, you are. I have been many times, right? That's what junior high is all about. Junior high is one right? Because they run around and they talk trash about other people and you make little, right? The reason that they use the term is because at the base of a lot of interpersonal problems, it is narcissism, toxic narcissism. And a narcissist always is recruiting flying monkeys. Because when you recruit a flying monkey, you're making them feel important because you're trusting them to carry your anger and your hurt and your woundedness, right? And they're going to fight for you, and it's all really icky, but it feels good for a while. And if you can keep the charade up and get enough flying monkeys, my God, you can be a very popular and powerful person. The question is, what good did it ever do anybody here to be mad at somebody who didn't hurt you? Does you no good at all. And what good did a narcissist ever do? Even if you were in the in crowd for a while, what good does it do you? Because a narcissist will get rid of you and recruit flying monkeys against you the second you're not useful to them. So it is a good point, actually, Bob. Thumbs up to you. All right, so naming the hurt in its simplest form is simply not universalizing the pain that we go through, but in its actual application, you're likely to find out things about yourself that are very important and about which, if you recognize them and take action to address them, you can make significant changes in your emotional stability and happiness, right? So it is much more complex than simply the 4 steps of forgiveness on the surface level. There's a lot of other stuff going on. Okay. Questions, comments? What is one question somebody has on their mind?
What would our world be like if everybody lived like that? Like, would there be no war?
Sure.
Really would be no war?
Right. The great frustration, I think, for any thinking person is always, well, the equation for humanity goes like this. We actually do have plenty of resources to feed and clothe everybody and to give people a chance, right? But doggone, all we really think to do is to kill each other. And the truth is, what makes the great nations that we all studied in school? They killed better than the other nations, right? If you look at it, really, eventually you go, wow, there's something seriously wrong with the way we think, right? I always come back to the same thing, the guys who get the moniker, the Great, hung on them, Peter the Great, right? What are they? They're mass murderers.
People think there's shortage of everything, shortage of food, shortage of
Plenty.
clothing. There's abundance of everything. If people would only share,
Shortage,
there's abundance.
That's right. That's right. Now, for the record, I am not now, nor have I ever been a member of the Communist Party. And communism is a stupid system that doesn't work. That aside, right? We're just broken. Anyway, let's not get too far off track. All right, so everybody's got naming the hurt down to a science now. You can teach your children, grandchildren, friends.
I'm gonna leave behind with the purpose.
Okay. Pay attention to what is revealed about your own history and about you, right? Because there's much more power in that. Remember, sometimes you're forgiving people who you have no business talking to about it, and so it won't ever do them good or ill either way, right? It is like most things of God, it's transformative for you. It might be transformative if you can teach somebody else, but that's about it. Okay, tonight we're going to talk about forgiveness.
We're actually the only person we have control over.
That's right. And what do we do with that control? Mostly say, I didn't mean I couldn't help because he's so bad.
Made me do it.
Take one and pass the rest down. I got 2 there, I'll get 1 more. So there was a young lady who ate with you tonight.
That's my daughter.
Oh, boy.
But she'd
Did you already
already
get
committed to another Bible study.
Oh, that's great.
But she met me anyway.
She's welcome to come eat, and I'll try to get by and meet her
Okay.
tomorrow. I had meant to tonight and then ran out of time, which is the theme for the day. What's Steve like? Well, he doesn't seem to have any time.
You have two, right?
So on a side and semi-hilarious note, you should know that I don't actually use punctuation in most of my writing. In my sermons or my reflections, I write all caps, no punctuation. A period will accidentally appear on occasion. So like when I've shared them with Kelly, she always goes. So this is a labor of love, because I have endeavored to use, right? Sometimes for no good reason, I just know commas are usually a part of writing, so I'll throw them in there someplace. That's a,
Some of my examples with using different punctuation and how it changes the meaning.
oh, yes, I've read them. But I write only for me, right? Because I'm a verbal translator. So it's all caps because it's much easier to see, and I don't need punctuation because I write in the rhythm that I think and speak. So anyway,
Thank you.
I just want you to be in awe that I love you so much that I've actually endeavored. And occasionally, I will use a colon or a semicolon. I have no earthly idea how to actually use them, but they do make me feel
Oh, I haven't
adult.
punched this key in a while.
That's right. I know punctuation's good. Let's put some there. All right.
Thank you for trying, we appreciate the
Sure,
effort.
sure.
Even your
Appreciate
quotation
it.
marks.
I did, that's right. I'm not sure if I was supposed to, but I did. All right. So the act of forgiving begins with intent to be free from the confines of the hurt. Forgiving takes time to fully settle into our hearts and souls. And man, it does. If you're grinding away on some long-term damage or some really hard things, be kind to yourself. You're not going to be able to forgive that and walk away from it through this course this year. It really is a long endeavor, right? And it happens so slowly sometimes that you suddenly become aware you've made more progress than you believe. But don't hold yourself to the standard of, there's something wrong with that, I couldn't forgive. Yeah, nothing wrong with you. It is a work of the soul, it goes slow. It is often the case that we find ourselves hurt again and feel as if there has been no forgiveness on our part, whether the same person hurts us or someone else acts towards us in a similar way. Because this triggering is normal and ongoing, it seems to many that they either can't or haven't forgiven. Those ideas rest on the belief that forgiving is a one-time concrete event, but it is not. It is a process in which, like a physical wound, healing takes time, and often a long-term scar will be left. It can be discouraging to keep trying if we fail to register this truth. It really can, right? Our method is to suggest that forgiveness begins with a promise to God. The promise is specific, and it gives us a way to feel as if we have begun the work of forgiving in earnest. We suggest, actually I suggest, that to accomplish this, it is best to write out a covenant with God that addresses ways in which you are going to act and react concerning your situation going forward. In essence, the covenant is a plan to confront and disperse triggers as they arise. In addition, the covenant makes us accountable to God for our actions and words. So this picks up the theme if you were here for communion, right? That was in communion too. Helping us to shut the flow of toxicity and the call of revenge down. Below is an example of a successful covenant. So this is what we're wanting you to do this week, is to write your own covenant. And the contention, as the class is taught here, is this, that forgiveness is actually a matter of saying to God, I forswear revenge. Nothing more, nothing less, right? So in religious language, which actually works really well here, it is you're saying to God, you're the judge, and I'm going to let you be the judge. I'm not going to talk. I'm not continuing the fight. I won't take a shot at you if I have a chance later, right? I'm not going to talk trash about it, right? I'm just leaving it alone and stepping away from it. You do whatever you want to do. And mostly, and aggravatingly, what God wants to do is continue to offer grace and mercy, etc. Right? But, right, at that point, you may still be very hurt, very damaged, very upset, but you have actually forgiven the person. Because unforgiveness means that you're in pursuit of, can anybody give me the magic word? Revenge. Or, if you want to dress it up in its finest clothes, justice. if only we could stop injustice, that might work, but again, there's a flaw in the thing. So it's a very concrete, very black and white. Here's what forgiveness actually is. You do this, and it'll help release all the rest of it, right? I'm a really emotive guy, so I talk all the time about what's going on inside and that kind of stuff. In this case, it's much less emotive for me because it really is. There's power in saying to God of your own free will, right? I promise you, I'm not going to say trash about this person. I'm not going to recruit flying monkeys, right? I'm not going to take revenge. I'm going to even try, and this is my own personal little tidbit, I'm going to try not to smile inside or be that way if they should come to ruin. That's all important, right? And the reason for that isn't because I don't enjoy watching my enemies sometimes take a fall. It's because when I do enjoy it, all that's happened is it set me way back in my development, and I got to walk those steps again. All right, so here's a sample. Right? Father, I am angry and hurt by the actions of you, fill in the blanks. I know that your desire is for me to forgive them so that I might receive a greater abundance of your grace and forgiveness. Pause there for just a second, and I'll remind you, we put long lists of scripture on the tables with the stones this year, and every one of those scriptures said the same thing. Come on, somebody tell me, in essence, what did those scriptures say?
You'll be forgiven as you forgive.
You'll receive as much forgiveness as you give. Who was I quoting in those things? Jesus. Every time. Jesus said over and over, here's how it works. If you will forgive those that have harmed you, you may receive the forgiveness that I'm offering. And if you don't, it's a mathematical equation, right? If you're willing to work on forgiveness just a little tiny bit, only when it really does you good, and right, then that's the amount of forgiveness that you can enjoy. And what that means is, or a way to think about it is, let's say percentages, right? So let's say you're a 10% forgiver. That means God has 10% of what makes you to work with, and that's all. If you forgive 50% of the thing you've been done to you, God has 50% of you to mold, make, and to begin to transfigure or change, right? So, I'm sorry to harp so much on the same stuff over and over, but what's wrong with the church? Not our church, the church universal. Chock full of people with about a 5% quotient of forgiveness or less. So people say, what happened to the church? Why isn't it powerful? Why? Because God's got nothing to work with in most of it. Because we do the universal, well, we've all done bad things and we're sure sorry about it. We accept your forgiveness. Hallelujah. Almost no forgiving gets done. You never get stressed, never get, right? Preachers don't want to stress their people with the idea that they should actually practice their faith. And that leads to a very shallow, bitter, angry form of Christianity, which is what we have in the West in the modern day. Bob?
Probably off track again, but there's a, kind of like an old saying that never laugh at somebody else's misfortune because it may become yours. Or it's termed it a little different, but that's basically what I've had put to me quite a long time.
I have said for years and years and years when something goes wrong, like when I had the heart attacks, the first heart attack, I came back to church and people were kind. I was talking to I think a staff member, and they said, well, what's your kind of takeaway? And I said, well, I was in the hospital, and this is true, I was in the hospital, laying in my bed and thinking, well, that's really interesting, right? Half of the people at Longs Peak are going to be bitterly disappointed that I made it. And half of the people are going to be really happy, and I'm going to know the difference when I get back. Because you can see disappointment in people's eyes, right? Where they go, oh, you made it through. I know, it is horrible, but I'm a truth teller. Okay, here we go. Refuse to speak in the negative about it. Refuse any opportunity to get revenge. Imagine if we imposed these rules on political candidates. Yes, you may speak to our group, but you may not say anything negative about your opponent. If I encounter them and the encounter is negative, then oh my, it will be, right? I will politely excuse myself. I do these things to honor you. I ask that you would work in and through me as I begin to live in these new ways. Now that's a relatively generic. I want you to write your specific one for your situation. So in my case, I should have written it about my brother, only I'm an idiot and my brother is the one that I've used the example is visiting. Let's not bring it up, shall we? Anyway, if I was writing it for him, what I would say is if it becomes childish again, right, but between us, I'm just gonna change the subject. Because that's the best way to excuse myself out of that trap.
Oh, if you're writing this for you, with this specific forgiveness we're talking about, personal to you, but you've already done and spoke negative about it.
Yeah,
So then what?
well, make a promise and go forward.
Yeah,
I assume most of us have.
yeah.
Because, again, most of us live our lives directed by societal norms, not by our faith tradition. And the societal norms are you have to get revenge or you're weak. You have to best them. You have to prove to other people they're bad, right? All that kind of stuff. And the whole process of wanting to forgive Kurt is for Christians and anybody really, right? Is to come to the point where you realize, oh my God, I've just been poisoning myself all along, right? I keep pouring toxin in the water and I'm drinking that water. I want to opt out. I want a different way.
I have a question.
Yes.
Go ahead. Okay, is there a difference? I think there should, it seems like there is a difference, but I can't figure out what it is. People say, I'm forgiving because I have to, so I can get forgiveness. Is that a sincere forgiveness of the other party?
They say, what now?
They're saying, I'm forgiving them because if I don't forgive them, God won't give me forgiveness. Is that a sincere forgiving of their hurt? Or is that a forgiving just so they get something from God?
I don't know.
I see that as different.
If they did that, as callously as you put it,
Well,
then I wouldn't think it would be sincere, in which case it's.
What I'm referring to that I see because in the Grisha video, there's a lady that says that. Well, I forgave and I forgive because God won't forgive me if I don't forgive. I'm not sure that's a sincere forgiveness on her part. It seems like you're only doing it so you get something from God.
So here's the hope in that situation, that I think I would agree with you, right, but the hope would be that if she were serious about trying to forgive them, even for that specific reason, that she would discover in forgiveness that there's a lot more to it than that.
Right, it would come to her over time.
She is correct though, because that's what I pointed out earlier. Jesus clearly said, right? You can really, I can only top you off to the point that you're empty, and the way you get empty is you be forgiven, right?
Right, and I think, I was wondering if I was the only one thinking, that just doesn't sound right. I think you have to work more on your forgiving of the
Yeah.
other party.
Yeah, so it bleeds in pretty quickly to works righteousness, right? So you can take my words and say, I think Creel is talking about you earn your own forgiveness, and that doesn't seem right to me. And I'm not talking about that. I just lack language to talk with more nuance. What I know is Jesus said clearly, right? Here is the equation: forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. So it isn't like God owes you forgiveness. It is that you're blocked from receiving the forgiveness that God has poured out until you make room, would be better language for it.
And
But
needs to be sincere from you. Okay.
Well, maybe she was just stating the facts.
she might have been, right. It's a Calvinist film, right?
So there's a little bit of difference.
Right. At Fun and, right, so a bunch of United Methodists thought it'd be a great idea to use Calvinist materials, because it's best materials out there, right? But I do always start out by saying, so what you've just heard is really a distinctly Calvinist viewpoint. I'm not a Calvinist, so I may answer some questions in ways that really don't fit your narrative. And it's okay, I'm not gonna try to convert you, right? But you just need to know that there's a little dissonance between what they say and what a good, sound theological viewpoint.
And you said how often to Maryland?
So, this will be the last thing that I'll answer Lisa's question, then we're done. it's interesting, I tease all the time about Marilyn, right? But over the course of our marriage, it is true, I have learned so much more about the idea of providence than I was taught, because I was taught from an anti-Calvinist viewpoint. And she has learned a great deal about free will, so that we are some kind of, both of us, some kind of strange hybrid, ashamed to tell our colleagues, right, that we can see validity in the other point of view. But it's true, you go, oh, I never thought of it like that. Now, I'm not what's called a tulip Calvinist, neither is Marilyn. But you start factoring in, you say, well, okay.
What's providence?
Providence is now give me
I've
the
heard
other
the
word.
word, but I don't
Predestination.
Predestination.
know. Okay.
Right. So
So you have knowledge of both, and that just
Right.
enriches your knowledge.
right, intelligent, long conversations, right, between two
Two
pretty
learned people.
well-schooled biblical scholars, where you go, okay, yeah, Calvin was wrong, absolutely wrong about that, but he wasn't wrong about the idea that there's a lot of predestination. The difference really is, I don't see any predestination in the elect. In other words, God is not predetermined who goes to heaven and who goes to hell. That's pure Calvinism. That's nonsense.
Oh, they believe that too.
Yes.
I didn't know
Well,
Right,
that's
that's where
the word
Methodists draw
free
the line.
will comes in.
Right, right. So we say, no, it's a relationship, and all relationships are free will, and the Calvinists say effectively, you can live any doggone way you want to, you can believe anything you want to, if you're not the elect, you ain't going.
Oh,
Where you
that's-
go,
oh, I
that's
didn't know
just
that.
wrong.
Okay, well, that's disgusting.
Yeah, they don't say it that plainly because,
It sounds wrong. Okay, so I've talked to people and I'll say, well, what, I says, it can't be that because you have free will and that changes. It's like the stories when we were kids.
you're a
they had
natural
alternate-
Methodist.
Alternate endings, you know, you read this and you go to that ending and, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you're a natural Methodist. Methodists have, their bones ache when predestination goes too far. Honestly, you go, ooh, that elbow's kicking up, I think that probably isn't right. There are lots of things predestined. For example, in all of our lives, not necessarily case-by-case basis, God said this, but it's predestined that if you are out of line with the will of God, there will be consequence and you can't avoid it. If you lie, you're a liar. If you cheat, you're a cheater. That's predestined, that's the rule.
You should get forgiveness.
Right, but it's predestined, right? That's how it is. It's also true that regardless of your economic status or your status in the community, when you are kind, it is good for you.
Yes.
Okay, Lisa?
So my question is more asking your opinion. So you said that you wanna get to the point where you're not saying anything negative about the person. And I remember the last time this person was brought up to me, someone said, oh, how wonderful they were, and I said, you obviously have not had any of the experiences with them that I have.
That counts as negative. I know, it's very hard, it's very hard. Yeah.
So, maybe it's a step in the right direction,
It
but
is,
just
it
not.
is. That's right, you weren't talking deep trash, right? But you were throwing a little shade. Yeah. So last Sunday, as I was walking around talking to people on Sunday morning, somebody said about somebody who's tormented me for years. Oh, they were there and they were wonderful. And I was in the same situation, right, where you want to go. And what I did was say, they often are. But that's taken me years to come to, honestly, right?
But you did that consciously and with a
That's right.
good heart, and that makes.
And because I made a promise to God, right? Really,
Yeah.
I am mending my ways and not gonna dishonor you by being that way anymore. So, yeah, it's right? And when you get into the arena, again, in divorce, right?
I was just thinking about that.
What do you say about your ex-spouse and kids?
You tell him that he's a wonderful person and he's made mistakes and I've made mistakes, and this is between him and I.
That's right, because you know if you're wise, ultimately, they're gonna make up their own doggone minds. So the one who trashes the other parent, they're gonna come to a point where they understand, that wasn't right.
I want my kids to love their dad and their grandpa.
You have- yeah,
That's
see?
important.
All that feels better, but Lisa, you are sweet and kind to confess what we have all done, more or less, right? So, I'm really happy right now that I was able to conjure that, often is, right?
Proud.
Well,
It felt better, I was done with it then, right? The whole ick thing immediately descended on me,
And now look.
but my
it's great.
response, you go, yeah, okay, well, that was quick, right? off we go. But again, that's a lot of work on that same subject, same situation over years that allows me to honestly be able to go. And I still, a lot of time my prayer is still, oh, here I am again, right? I just feel so unhappy and so angry and so whatever, and I just flesh it out with God. And when I conduct myself like a gentleman, I feel much better.
And you didn't carry it around, you were
Right,
done.
right. I was free to confuse you all with a sermon.
Yeah.
Bill,
Nice.
Do you find writing it out helps? Do you
I'm a
like
verbal
that?
guy.
Yeah.
right, so cell phones and earpieces, greatest thing that ever happened to me. Because I talk to myself, I pray out loud incessantly, and I used to look crazy. And now everybody does it, right? So I'm driving along, babbling, and there's nobody else in the car. People think that I'm talking to on a cell phone or whatever. That's true, right? My great deliverance. I don't have to interrupt my prayer time when, so.
I used to do that before your phone.
Yep, It's, for me, it's the best way to pray. The whole formality of prayer in the church has always been a stumbling block. An ongoing conversation in which I'm mindful, I'm talking to the creator of the universe. He's not my buddy.
When you
He's
say it
my
out
God,
loud, it
he's
has a
good for me.
different connotation.
When I hear myself say I'm not gonna do this, it has extra weight. All right, Bob.
A thought come to me that my daughter had kind of a split up with her mother.
Mhm.
And the mother wouldn't talk to her because she went to Minnesota or somewhere. And the only thing I could tell her is don't worry about it. She had 3 kids to take care of anyway, so your responsibility is with the kids. You see that they taken care of, and whatever. And when your mother's ready to talk, she'll talk.
Yeah, there's
But
truth.
one thing about it, it's the only mother you've got, and it's the only one. So there won't be another mother or whatever,
That's
so.
wise counsel. And it's true, right? And people can do with it what they want. Okay,
She
so-
used
Write your forgiveness covenant with God. Bring it, be brave enough to share it. Right? Elucidate all of us. Are we good? Super tight was nice. Yes, sir.
Just, this is a part of 2, right? The covenant is.
A part of.
3, no, it's
Subs-
number 3.
No, it's
It's
number
number
three.
3.
It's
It's 3. Okay.
So,
All right.
You didn't have a 3 on the board. He's
Oh.
confused.
Yeah.
yeah, we did naming the herd. We reviewed naming the herd. Now we're on to lesson 3, right? And the sermon that supports what we're talking about tonight is Sunday. And it won't be nearly as clear. Okay, we got powers, lipstick on, make it smiling. Okay, thank you all. God bless.